Today, we're going to decode the latest report from a company that really acts as a kind of barometer for the entire global economy. What do their numbers really tell us about how the world is feeling about risk and opportunity right now?
So this is CME Group. Now, you might not trade with them directly, but believe me, their performance is a super powerful signal of global economic confidence. It gives us this unique window into how the major players are navigating all the risks and opportunities out there.
All right, so let's talk about this number, $1.5 billion. I mean, wow, that's the big headline revenue figure for their third quarter, and it definitely turns heads. But, a number that massive is really just the cover of the book. The real story is what's going on behind it.
To figure that out, let's start with the what. We're just going to take a quick snapshot of their key financial results to kind of get our bearings.
Okay, so here are the core figures from the report. You've got that $1.5 billion in revenue we just talked about, which leads to an operating income of $973 million. But, hang on a second, look at the bottom there. See how there are two different numbers for net income? One's $908 million, and the other's a full $1 billion. So what's up with that? Stick with me, that's not a typo, it's actually a really important detail, and we're going to circle back to it in just a moment.
So here's the big question, right? How does a company like this actually generate that much money in just 3 months? It's not like they're selling iPhones or something you can hold.
Well, their main business is running a marketplace, but instead of, physical goods, their clients trade financial contracts to manage risk. Just think of farmers trying to lock in a good price for their crops, or maybe an airline hedging against fuel prices suddenly spiking. CME provides that regulated central hub for all of that to happen smoothly.
And this is how that translates into actual revenue. The huge majority of it, a massive $1.2 billion, comes from these tiny little fees they charge on every single trade. Then you've got market data services kicking in another $203 million, with the rest coming from some other sources.
Okay, now back to that net income question. The easiest way to think about it is this. The standard net income, that's the official number that includes everything, like a one-time expense for, say, a new building. But the adjusted number, it strips out those unusual items to give you a much clearer, more honest look at the health of their core, day-to-day business. It's why so many analysts really focus on that one.
Let's keep moving, because now we get to the really fascinating part, the why. Why was this quarter so strong? Well, the answer is completely tied up in what's happening in the global economy right now.
And you know what? The company's chairman and CEO, Terry Duffy, he basically gives us the biggest clue right here in his statement. The magic words? Ongoing uncertainty.
So here's the key theme to wrap your head around, because it might seem a little backwards at first. All that market uncertainty, worries about interest rates, geopolitical shifts, that stuff is actually good for CME's business. It's a powerful driver. See, when things get volatile, companies don't just sit on their hands. No way. They get active. They use these financial tools to protect themselves.
And we can see this trend play out perfectly in a key metric they track called average daily volume, or ADV. You can think of it as the pulse of their entire marketplace.
And this chart just illustrates the point brilliantly. I mean, look at that. An average of over 25 million contracts were traded every single day. Now, while it's a little bit down from last year's really exceptional quarter, the company pointed out that this was their second highest third quarter for trading volume ever. That just shows you how active clients were in managing all that uncertainty.
So, okay, the company had a really strong quarter, and it was driven by all this market activity. But what about its overall financial health? Let's peek beyond just the income statement for a second.
A quick look at their balance sheet shows a pretty solid position. They're sitting on $2.6 billion in cash, which, is a really significant cushion against their $3.4 billion in long-term debt.
Now this number is really interesting because of what it says about their history. Over $29.5 billion. That is the total amount CME Group has returned to its shareholders just in dividends since 2012. I mean, that speaks volumes about their long-term profitability and consistency.
All right, we've covered a ton of ground here. Let's wrap this up and really boil it all down to the most important things you should take away from this whole report.
So what's the big picture here? Well, CME's earnings aren't just dry numbers on a page. They tell a story about the global economy. Their business actually thrives on uncertainty. And that trading volume we looked at, the ADV, that's like a direct pulse check on how actively the world is trying to manage its financial risk. Their performance really does act as a powerful barometer for what's coming down the economic road.
And that kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Watching this company's performance, it isn't just about finance. It's a bit like watching a forecast for the global economic weather. And as we look ahead, the big question is, what's that forecast going to tell us next?